Every year we see a ton of game reveals, but this time, something big just happened in gaming. We're talking massive budget games, realistic graphics, and gameplay that just looks really impressive. Here are 21 biggest game reveals that will dominate gaming. Onimusha Way of the Sword was one of the biggest surprises when it got revealed. After almost 20 years, Capcom finally brought the series back, and that alone already got a lot of people excited. The story follows Musashi in a dark version of feudal Japan, where demons have taken over Kyoto. During his journey, he ends up wielding a mysterious Oni gauntlet, a supernatural weapon that becomes central to both the story and gameplay. From what we've seen so far, gameplay focuses on precise sword combat. Parries, deflects, and timing matter a lot. Breaking an enemy's stance lets you finish them instantly with brutal attacks, so fights feel more about skill and timing than just button mashing. The Oni Gauntlet adds another layer. It lets you absorb souls from enemies, which can heal you, upgrade your abilities, or power special weapons called Oni armaments.
Swordplay is a game of strength. Winning is what matters. And you can bring as many friends as you want. Not good.
It instantly grabbed attention the moment it was revealed, mainly because of how disturbing and realistic it looked. The trailer didn't feel like typical horror. It was raw, brutal, and way more uncomfortable than most games in the genre. Gameplay mixes shooter mechanics with survival horror pressure. You have guns, but ammo is limited, and not everything can be killed. Some situations force you to fight, while others push you to run or hide, which keeps the pacing unpredictable. One thing that really stands out is the physics and body horror system. Enemies react to every hit in a very detailed way. Limbs can be destroyed, bodies change based on damage, and the environment itself reacts during fights. If the final game delivers on that level of detail and tension, this could easily become one of the most intense horror experiences in years. The Expanse Osiris Reborn feels like a big step for sci-fi RPG fans, especially if you're into story-driven games with strong choices. The story begins on Eros, where a routine situation quickly turns into something much bigger. From there, you get pulled into a larger conflict involving corporations, political groups, and something far more dangerous behind the scenes. Gameplay mixes third-person shooting with squad-based mechanics. You bring companions into missions, give commands in real time, and rely on their abilities to control fights. It's not just shooting. Positioning, timing, and team coordination all matter. There's also a strong focus on choices and consequences. Your decisions affect your crew, your alliances, and how the story unfolds. Relationships can change over time, and the people on your ship aren't just background characters. They react to how you lead.
It was like another life. Everything made sense to you.
Oh, you're back already? Wait, so you flew in on that?
Now, every voice a tight beam.
Protegen will easily turn this into a massacre if they want.
We need him alive!
Locked on to you, like a torpedo.
Do not interfere.
Salt. Almost had me fooled, Fruin.
The Witcher 4 feels like a major new chapter for the series, especially since it moves away from Geralt's story and starts something fresh. Instead of continuing the same path, this game is setting up a new saga with a different direction. From what's been shared so far, the game is being built using Unreal Engine 5, which means a big leap in visuals and world detail. CD Projekt Red is also focusing on improving open-world design, making exploration feel more natural instead of just following markers. Gameplay details are still limited, but it's expected to keep that mix of sword combat, magic signs, and choice-driven quests. The big difference will likely come from how the world reacts to your decisions and how the new protagonist shapes the story. This isn't just a sequel, it's the start of a completely new saga in the Witcher universe. Supreme Experiment introduces a strange sci-fi world where humanity no longer lives on the surface. Instead, people survive inside massive towers above toxic clouds, while machines are left behind to maintain what's left of civilization. Then one day, those machines stop responding, and no one knows why. Gameplay mixes first-person shooting with exploration and hacking. You're not just fighting, you're scanning areas, reading logs, and piecing together what went wrong. There's also a system called Fragmented Reality, where your neural implant lets you access a strange parallel layer of the world. It starts off like visual glitches, but slowly turns into something much bigger with its own rules and secrets. One thing to keep in mind, most of what's shown so far is still early. The trailer focuses more on atmosphere than raw gameplay, so the actual combat system and mechanics haven't been fully revealed yet.
A 100 years ago, humans moved up into those huge, ugly towers and left the machines behind to run things for them. Left alone for a century, the machines evolved in ways no one could predict. A new species, trying to survive.
Need I state the obvious? He is not ready.
Jibs, the service is over.
You're a rare breed, Bond. I should be interested to see what you do next.
009 will employ every manner of subterfuge to avoid capture.
Try not to draw attention to yourself.
Me? Housekeeping, I presume?
You seem the kind of guy who knows what he likes.
So you won't do anything stupid.
Of course not. I'm not an idiot.
Agents have very short life expectancy.
007 First Light finally gives James Bond a proper origin story in game form. Instead of playing the usual polished agent, you're stepping into a younger, more reckless version of Bond, still trying to earn his 007 status. After a heroic act, he gets recruited into the 00 program, but a mission goes wrong and pulls him into a deeper conspiracy inside the agency itself. It's not just about saving the world. It's about proving himself and becoming the agent people recognize. From what's been shown so far, gameplay mixes stealth, combat, and spy mechanics in a more flexible way. You can sneak, gather intel, use gadgets, or go loud when things fall apart. Unlike Hitman, the pacing is faster and more action-driven. Combat is designed to flow more smoothly, inspired by systems like Arkham-style fights, while still keeping that spy feeling with investigation and infiltration.
Civilizations rose and fell on Earth in its antediluvian past. Our first manned expedition will leave for the city in 2 days' time. We'll set up a base camp from which to conduct our exploration. If the maze is any indication, what we're about to see will change our very understanding of the universe.
Stay back! Stay back!
Cthulhu: The Cosmic Abyss goes for a very different kind of horror, focusing more on investigation and psychological pressure instead of action. The game is set in 2053, where corporations start exploring the deep ocean and unknowingly awaken something ancient. You play as Noah, an occult investigator sent to find out why a mining station in the Pacific suddenly went silent. Gameplay is heavily focused on first-person investigation and puzzle solving. You collect clues, analyze objects, and piece together what happened using tools and an AI companion named Key. It's less about combat and more about thinking, observing, and connecting information. What makes this one interesting is its approach. Instead of relying on shooting or constant danger, it builds tension through atmosphere, mystery, and the idea that you're dealing with something far beyond human understanding.
Death's always waiting. Just not for me.
Marvel's Wolverine is one of the biggest Marvel game projects right now. From the latest trailers, the tone is way more brutal than anything Insomniac has done before. It leans fully into Wolverine as a character, violent, relentless, and not trying to be a hero. Combat is where it really stands out. Everything is close range and intense. Claws, fast movement, and constant pressure. The fights look raw and physical, with a heavy focus on impact, even using detailed blood tech to make hits feel more brutal. The game moves across different locations like Canada, Japan, and Madripoor, with characters like Omega Red and Mystique already confirmed. So it's not just one setting, it's more like a global story with different threats along the way. The game is set to release on September 15th, 2026, exclusively for PS5.
For answers we should have never asked. Always clawing at the surface like worms begging for food. A lack of understanding to push what we don't know when something should be left alone.
There's nothing we can do.
Retrieval brings a mix of sci-fi and horror with a strong cinematic focus, and it leans heavily into story and atmosphere rather than just action. You play as Hannah Loesch, a commander stranded on a distant planet after something goes wrong during a research mission. The setting revolves around a damaged research facility where something clearly didn't just fail, it changed. As you move deeper into the base, the focus is on uncovering what happened to your team and understanding what's now inside with you. So far, most of what's been shown comes from cinematic and in-engine trailers. There are no clear, uninterrupted gameplay sequences yet, which means core systems like combat, exploration flow, or progression are still not fully revealed. Some moments hint at third-person movement and interaction, but nothing confirmed enough to clearly show how the game actually plays.
What we call civilization is just a grand illusion, a mirage.
If you could remake life, what answer would unfold? Or is the answer home? Written.
Genigods Nezha sets up a large-scale action RPG inspired by Chinese mythology, with a story that goes beyond a typical hero journey. You play as the Spirit Pearl, the first life created by the goddess Nuwa, which later reincarnates into Nezha. Gameplay focuses on fast, skill-based combat with both ground and aerial mechanics. You fight using weapons like Nezha's spear, then transition into the air using tools like the wind-fire wheels, creating a more dynamic flow during battles. Some encounters go even bigger, with massive godlike enemies where fights aren't just about hitting them, but interacting with their scale and movement during the battle. It's still early, with a release window far ahead, but the direction is clear. Fast combat, mythological scale, and a world that feels much larger than just one character's story.
But we'll keep your memory alive. Every sacrifice we make matters and will never be forgotten.
State of Decay 3 opens the door again to one of Xbox's long-running zombie survival worlds, but this time, the setup is more brutal and far less forgiving. Years after the outbreak, the world is still collapsing, and surviving communities are barely holding on while the undead keep evolving. The reveal back in 2020 came through a cinematic trailer, but at that point the project was extremely early, closer to a concept than an actual playable game. Even the developers later admitted it was essentially just ideas being visualized at the time. From what's confirmed now, the game stays true to its roots as a third-person open-world survival experience where building a community matters just as much as fighting zombies. You manage survivors, expand your base, and make decisions that permanently affect who stays alive and who doesn't. Alien Deathstrom sets up a rescue mission that immediately turns into survival. You're sent to a remote off-world colony after all communication suddenly stops, but when you arrive, the place is already being torn apart by a massive storm and something far worse hiding inside it. You play as a combat engineer, not just a random survivor. That means you're trained for both rescue and combat, which changes the tone a bit. You're capable, but the situation is way beyond control. What starts as saving people quickly becomes trying to stay alive. From what's been shown so far, gameplay is a mix of first-person shooting and survival pressure. You're dealing with alien creatures, but at the same time, the environment itself is dangerous. The Deathstorm isn't just background. It's an ongoing threat that forces you to move carefully, find shelter, and adapt constantly.
Warning. Adverse weather conditions detected. Wind speeds reaching survival threshold. Seek shelter.
Yeah.
John Wick game made a lot of noise right away when it was announced, mostly because it's not just a small tie-in, it's a full AAA action project built around the John Wick universe. Gameplay is built around third-person gun-fu combat, where shooting, close-quarters fighting, and movement all blend together. It's not just standing and shooting, every encounter is meant to flow like an action sequence, with fast transitions between guns, melee, and environmental takedowns. The game takes place in an original story set before the events of the Impossible Task, so it's exploring a part of John Wick's life that hasn't really been shown in the films. That alone already sets a different direction instead of just retelling the movies. What makes this interesting is the goal behind it, to actually translate the style of the John Wick films into gameplay that feels playable, not just cinematic. Stalker 2: Cost of Hope is the first major expansion for Heart of Chernobyl, and it pushes the zone into a new phase of conflict and exploration. The story runs alongside the main events of the base game, where Skiff gets pulled into another unstable situation after picking up a strange PDA signal that leads deeper into the zone's political tension between factions. The setup expands the world instead of resetting it. Duty and freedom are still at the center of the conflict, but the fragile peace between them starts breaking down again, and your decisions influence how that balance shifts. From what's been shown, gameplay stays true to the core survival FPS formula. You're still dealing with exploration, firefights, anomalies, and resource pressure, but now across new regions like the Chernobyl nuclear power plant and the Iron Forest. These areas aren't just visual changes. They come with new quests, weapons, enemies, and story threads that expand how the zone actually works.
The zone itself. I could never understand why those guys can't just live in peace. The zone has enough to offer without spilling blood over it. When I heard what happened that sunny day, a chill ran down my spine.
I was there. It was night, and it was raining.
Do you call this peace, Veronin? Is this what peace looks like to you? My guys, they let your men in, shared their food, and what did they get in return? According to Section 6...
Valor Mortis was introduced as a first-person action horror set in a war-torn, alternate historical battlefield where something far worse than human conflict is taking over. Instead of a clean military shooter, the game leans into a darker setting where the war itself feels corrupted and unnatural. The story follows a soldier trying to survive in an environment where reality is breaking down. Battlefields are no longer just zones of conflict. They're filled with anomalies, twisted remnants of soldiers, and forces that don't behave like anything normal warfare would explain. From what's been shown, gameplay mixes first-person combat with survival horror pressure. You still use firearms and military gear, but encounters don't play like standard shooter fights. Ammunition and supplies are limited, and positioning matters as much as aim, especially when enemies don't follow predictable patterns. This is the next big narrative FPS from Ken Levine, the creator of BioShock, and that alone already set expectations high the moment it was shown. The game is set on a massive space colony called the Mayflower, a ship carrying humanity through space after Earth is long gone, where society slowly starts breaking apart from the inside. From what's been shown, gameplay is built around first-person shooting mixed with immersive sim systems. You can use guns, hacking, and environmental tools, but how you approach situations changes based on who you side with. The world itself reacts dynamically, not just in dialogue, but in how missions and encounters unfold. One of the most interesting systems is how the game treats relationships. Instead of a simple morality meter, characters remember what you do, and their behavior changes over time, sometimes helping you, sometimes working against you when you least expect it.
Is dying. And my only way out of here is with one of them.
Zoopunk is a 3D action-adventure set in the same universe as FIST, Forged in Shadow Torch, taking place years before the events of that game during an early conflict known as the First Torch War. The story unfolds in a world where animal factions are caught in chaos after the rise of a volatile energy source called Fire Seed, which ends up triggering a war involving powerful machines and collapsing cities. Gameplay focuses on fast-paced third-person combat. You control different animal characters, each with their own fighting style, and switching between them during combat is part of how you deal with different enemies and situations. Combat is combo-heavy, with a strong focus on movement, air attacks, and chaining abilities, especially during larger fights and boss encounters. Zoopunk leans heavily into stylish action and character variety, aiming for a fast, expressive combat experience in a chaotic sci-fi world.
Relax. I'm counting on trouble.
This belongs to me now. Finish him.
Staggering power. Reshaping reality as we know it. Everything we tried to keep inside eventually worms its way out. Must have had good reasons.
Control Resonant takes the series in a very different direction, and it's not just a simple continuation. This time, the focus shifts to Dylan Faden, Jesse's brother, as he's pulled into a new supernatural crisis spreading beyond the oldest house and into a distorted version of Manhattan. The story centers around a reality-breaking event where cosmic entities start taking over parts of the city. Dylan isn't just surviving, he's actively fighting back while trying to understand what's happening and find his sister. The tone still keeps that strange, mind-bending style the series is known for, but on a much larger scale. From what's been shown so far, gameplay changes quite a lot. Instead of focusing on shooting like the first game, this one leans into melee-based combat. Dylan uses a shape-shifting weapon called the Aberrant, which can switch forms mid-fight, letting you adapt your attacks depending on the situation. Beast of Reincarnation sets up a dark fantasy world where life and death are constantly repeating, and that cycle becomes the center of the story. Instead of a traditional hero, you play as someone tied to this endless loop, trying to understand why it keeps happening and how to break it. From what's been shown so far, gameplay focuses on action combat with a strong emphasis on timing and adaptation. Fights aren't just about attacking. You need to read enemy patterns, react properly, and adjust your approach depending on what you're facing. There are also hints of a progression system tied to reincarnation. Instead of a normal level-up system, dying and returning seems to be part of how you grow stronger, changing how you approach each attempt. Right now, details are still limited, and most of what's been shown is early footage, so a lot of the systems haven't been fully explained yet.
Holy Grail. Blood. This is a feast only for the king. Can't escape from your doomed fate.
Gwendolyn, this is your final warning.
My quarrel lies not with you, but I will take back everything that belongs to me. Even if...
Tides of Annihilation builds its world around a version of London that's been completely shattered by an otherworldly invasion. You play as Gwendolyn, the last survivor, trying to save her sister while dealing with a conflict that connects the real world with the mythical realm of Avalon. What makes it interesting right away is how it blends modern London with Arthurian legend. You're not just walking through ruins, you're moving through a city that's been twisted by supernatural forces, where reality and myth are overlapping in the same space. From the gameplay that's been shown, combat is fast, combo-driven, and built around summoning knights. You don't fight alone. You can call in spectral knights of the Round Table, each with different abilities, and switch between them during combos to create different attack styles. There's also a unique system where you can control both your character and a summoned knight at the same time, which adds more depth instead of just basic hack-and-slash combat. Grand Theft Auto 6 has been building hype for years, even with very little gameplay shown so far. Every time new footage drops, the focus is more on the world, characters, and tone rather than showing exactly how the game plays. The story takes place in the fictional state of Leonida, inspired by Florida, with a modern version of Vice City at the center. It follows two main characters, Lucia and Jason, in a crime-driven story that feels more grounded, starting small and slowly escalating into something much bigger. From what's been revealed, gameplay details are still mostly under wraps. There are hints of improved AI, more interactive environments, and possibly deeper stealth systems, but nothing has been fully shown yet. Rockstar is clearly holding back the full picture. The world itself looks like a major step forward. It's not just Vice City. It includes surrounding areas like swamps, highways, and smaller towns, creating a much larger and more detailed map compared to previous games.